Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 6 of the P.W.P Sessions podcast. I am your host, Willett Figueroa. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Tonight's guest is Steve Willett. Thank you all so much for tuning into tonight's episode. For those of you that are not already familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P Sessions, or the Poets with Purpose Sessions podcast, is a podcast that I created where I interview new or established authors of poetry, as well as rappers or MCs, and I feature a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session. I'm your host, Willett Figueroa. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I'm the creator of the P.W.P Sessions. Tonight's guest is Steve Willett, and this is his bio. Steve Jeffrey Willett, also known as SJ, his Instagram handle is @SJ by the gram, is a relatively new poet, having discovered his love of poetry a few years ago after finding his father felt the same way about the art form. His poem, Petulance, was a shortlisted selection for the University of Grimsby's Hammond House International Poetry Competition. Soon after its publication, he started attending Jersey City Writers Poetry Meetup, also known as the JC Plums, in 2019, where he began to develop his poetic voice. After finding out about sound poetry, Steve began to create soundscapes in his work, incorporating various voices to make a more performative piece. Steve is also actively involved in the poetry community, moderating a weekly online poetry workshop with Jersey City writers and co-producing the 2023 Jersey City Poetry Festival this past summer. He lives in the Heights in Jersey City with his wonderful wife and 2 daughters and 5 cats. You can find him at any of the numerous open mics around Jersey City, which he loves to frequent. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Steve Willett. Hey, Steve, good evening. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, excellent. So who's Steve Willett? How would you describe yourself or define yourself?
I am a work in progress. I am, like I said, very, very new to poetry. So I'm a poetry zealot, where I just really love the community, and I just support it, and it's been hugely supportive to me. So I'm learning as I go along and loving every minute of it.
Excellent, excellent. Now, what was it about poetry that you felt that you could start making contributions to the art form? Like how and when did you get your start?
It was very I never thought about poetry like until like 2017, 2019. 2019 I wrote a poem when my father was in in hospice, and then I didn't think about poetry again. And then 2019 I just kind of wrote a poem that just about strained relationships and things like that, and that was what got picked up and published. And so it was kind of a weird journey, because it was something that I had never thought of, and in getting it published, I kind of found, I was like, oh, there's a voice here that I didn't think I had.
Now, was that one particular poem that got published only, or were there others that you contributed to getting published as well?
That was the only one I've submitted, and it got published. I just wanted to have just like feedback on it, and it was shortlisted, and they published it, and so I was like, oh, maybe there's something here. But I have other things that I definitely would like to work on with publishing, and getting, I've been working most of this stuff with going to open mics, doing the live performance, and seeing how I could work on the art there.
Are there any plans for a book at some point in the future?
There's a lot of plans. I would love to do a book. I would love to do a book, an audiobook, play that could basically have the same poems, but just have different experiences. So the audience, whoever the audience is, can experience it just different ways on how they want to interact with the material.
And what subjects are you currently covering in your poetry?
I do a lot of like mental health and things. It's sort of what got me into writing poetry, because poetry has saved me in a lot of ways, with just dealing with mental health and things like that. I have a poem with about panic attacks and how that feels, about breakdowns and how that, how and experiencing it. So when I use different voices, it's how it's internal and external on how I present it. So I mean, I deal with a lot with that. I do have other ones that are not, that don't deal with those, but I would love to write a little more like love poems and things like that, but I'm working on that. So, 'cause you have to kind of have both. You can't just go into the darker elements, but it's I have some ones that are also fun as well.
Right, right. And what would you say is your motivation for writing? What motivates you?
Uh, I think it's just the having a voice. In finding a voice in poetry, it's something that's very powerful, and it's just knowing that I could express myself in that way. My Before poetry, I think my first love was stand-up comedy. And so the poets that to me growing up were like Steve Martin or Richard Pryor or were George Carlin, people who really just knew the craft of writing and making just even some simplistic things just really complex. And and I did stand up comedy actually for a while in New York City, but I didn't find a voice in that. I pulled punches. I didn't have anything that was personal. It was always like, hey, what do you think about airplanes? So there was nothing to hang on to. But I think with poetry, I found a voice that I can express. Uh, I can express myself, and I express things that are hard things that I go through. That that in doing them, it's sort of an exorcism of sorts. In performing them, I could feel those emotions, but they don't have the gravity that they did when I was going through them. But I could be right there. So I like having that aspect and being able to play with some of these hard emotions, but do it in a way that people can understand how these things feel.
Right. And I definitely agree that it's important to find your voice, because when when you are your true authentic self through your writing, that you're able to resonate with your audience better, as opposed to trying to sound like someone else or convey somebody else's ideas. When it's all about you and what you have to say, what your experiences are and what your ideas are. You in that regard, you're able to relate to people better, because there's always going to be somebody that you're able to connect with when you take that route.
I fully agree. And I'm probably more truthful in my poetry than than I it's so easy to because it's so easy to lie to yourself. But in poetry, if you need to have the truth there, because otherwise, what is the point of writing it, having it on the paper? So I
Right.
I would say I'm probably more truthful in my poetry than even therapy. Sometimes I just will go to my therapist and just say, just read this. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling.
Right. And who or what would you give credit to helping you develop your writing style?
Uh, I mean, so many like the comedians definitely. Um, there's so many performative people that I've seen. Sammy B, who has been on this podcast, and I think that she's an amazing performative poet. Um, other ones, Rescue Poetics, who is like one of the heart and soul of Jersey City poetry. Melita Rodas is amazing too. Like the people who do events. Millie has been an amazing poet and just so strong, and that I learned from every single like open mic I go to, because it's incredible. And even also being a part of the Jersey City writers, there are just incredible writers here. Um, Anissa Rahim is who's also here, is a wonderful poet, and she just published her first book. So I learned from all the poets, and to see what they do, and I just learn every day from them, and I'm always amazed with just the kind of talent that's out there.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And do you, with the subjects that you choose to cover, do you find yourself gravitating toward one particular subject over another, or do you feel you're just the type of writer that just writes whatever comes to your mind and your heart?
Uh, Usually it's like I have an idea about like a concept, and I want to see then how I can fit the concept. So I'll have in my on my iPhone, I'll have like things of just like, hey, what if I do this with a poem? And then but I don't write that poem until I have something to what some kind of concept to go in. So there are interesting ways to do a poem that I try to play around with.
Hmm. Excellent, excellent. And as you prepare to produce a book at some point, do you have a preference as far as self-publishing or going to like a traditional publisher or independent publisher? Have you decided which route you wanted to take, and do you have a preference as to which route to take?
I mean, I would like to go with the traditional publisher, but I think there are many roads to Rome. So
Mhm.
it's right now I'm just trying to get the poems all together and see what journey they take, and let's see how they fit, and then work it to see how I could turn that into a play and turn that into and something where so and each one is going to have its own journey. So so however they come about, I'm not particular about which way to go as long as they get out there.
Right. Definitely, definitely. And what poets are grabbing your attention at this moment?
uh I love Buttered Roll. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Rescue Poetics. Uh Rashad Wright is another amazing just performative poet. He's just so amazing, incredible with what he does. Um, there is just there's so many, but it's not even just the poets. It's the community itself. It's the people who are also behind who are running the things. John Trigonis, who does Way, like I said, Millie, who does Mocha Mike McMillie, which I'll be there on Thursday. It's they're great poets in their own right, and they've been doing this for such a long time that I have such respect for their for what they've brought to the community.
Excellent, excellent. Now let's talk about like your writing process. Like what's your vibe when you write? Like do you have a particular place or a particular setup that helps you focus on your writing? Like what's your typical writing process like when it comes to like when you're ready to work on a poem? um do you have a preference of being at home, or do you like you go by to sit by the water somewhere? It's like what's your ideal environment to write that helps you create?
It's really the idea can happen whenever. It just could be I could just hear a song and be like, oh, this is I think the idea clicks. For some reason, a lot of my poetry is like thought up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta either remember it tomorrow or write it down now. I wish it was more of a daytime thing, but you can't. Beggars can't be choosers on that one.
Right.
But yeah, so I really like to it's wherever I am. If I'm just out, I'll have a notebook with me. It's or I'll just have, okay, the concept works, and now I could do something with it.
Right, right. And take us back to that first moment where you hit the stage for the very first time. You did a poem. What was that experience like for you, and how was that received? Like, what was the response?
The response was great. I did yeah, I because I did it a poem where I had a couple people involved, and so I think the audience wasn't sure what to do with it. Oh, there's volunteers. There's supposed to be just one person up there speaking, but it went over really well. I mean, I wasn't as nervous because I used to do stand-up comedy, so I was used to having a stage presence, and going up there, and that's why I really it kind of drew to me to have the performative element to it. And it's and always incorporating. What's great is because incorporating the audience in the poems, I never know how it's going to be. So there's always I like having a sense of fear in going up there because the poem could be can be really thrown off by the volunteers, or it could bring it to another to a different level and to something that even surprises me. And I love it when it surprises me, when it's basically because then it's not my poem, it's their poem. There's more influence. The people that can influence the poem the most are the volunteers than anything that I could do because I already know the words, but they're putting themselves into the poem. And then I'm I'm just like so excited that I'm there too.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. And now out of all the poetry venues you may have performed at, do you have any favorites or one favorite?
I do not have one favorite, although I like them all. And I'm just trying to expand going out. Greenville Arts Crossroads has been an amazing, it's one of my favorite ones to go to. Like I said, I went to Mocha Mike Millie, and I love that the vibe that she has there is incredible. I'm looking forward to doing that again. And Way is always an incredible thing to go to at the end of the month. So yeah, because it's the quality of the poet and the poets and the talent um, are great unto themselves, but the people running them just know what they're doing, and they know how to cultivate a great set of just a wonderful night of poetry. I come out of every single one of those, and I'm like it's refreshing. It's like a day at the spa for me.
Excellent, excellent. Now you've heard the word, representation thrown around in different circles and in different contexts. When it comes to your writing and how you choose to present your work, how important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality, through your writing and through your performances?
I mean, I find it great to be able to represent myself. I want to have representation of others in the poem. I want other people to see themselves in the poem. So I always listen to like different voices that I'd like to have involved in the poems, and that will sometimes choose, but sometimes, I'll get volunteers, and I'll sometimes choose voices that I don't, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know how that would be," or I have a vision of what this role should be, but I will intentionally choose someone else because I want to hear it from a different perspective. I want people to put their perspective into the poetry because I can't. I mean, I can't represent other people, but I want other people to represent themselves in the poem, and so that this is a community effort that we can all see ourselves. That this is a communal poem, So I think representation is fine for myself, but uh, I would rather see other people represented in the poem, and I try to choose that accordingly.
Right, excellent, excellent. And staying in that same vein, going back to when you mentioned about, mental health and having some of your poetry um talk about mental health issues. When you're sharing about mental health, which is a very, very, very important issue that's being highlighted even more so these days. When you share poetry in regards to mental health, um, what is it like for you to share those poems? In the sense that do you feel when you share those poems on mental health, do you feel that you're being seen, and do you feel others are being seen when you share on mental health?
I do, because sometimes I'm in that situation. I if I have a poem about panic attacks, I know what I'm there. I'm like, I could feel those emotions. But in performing it though, those emotions are kind of, I'm not connected. I'm like there, I can feel the ones, but I don't feel that they could hurt me. I've had people come up with like, wow, I think I understand what that must feel like, you know, for people that haven't had panic attacks, people that, so it's great for the people who do understand, like, wow, that's exactly what I've gone through. Or, I mean, panic attacks are very individual, but it can be understood, but it could also be understood by people who don't understand panic attacks. I want to have a very a kind of is an experience. So you know, and playing around with voice and space, you could give people the experience of these things being in a safe place. Um, Personally, I think poetry is dangerous, because you you or and your audience are in danger of becoming a better person and you only have a couple of stanzas to do it. You don't have the time to write a Stephen Kingian type of 500-page tome, you know, about monsters. The monsters aren't in us, and you only have a couple lines, and it's but if we all experience it, I think we can all get something great out of it.
Right, definitely, definitely. And when you're dealing with poetry in regards to mental health, do you feel that when you share this type of poetry, do you feel that it's helping to break the stigma that comes with mental health issues?
Well, I think the stigma, it has been broken a bit since, you know, since like the 70s, 80s. But yeah, I mean, it's still out there, and I think if they could see it, you know, just to have that experience in a safe place of what, oh, this is what this feels like. Oh, this is, you know, and being a part of it, being a volunteer of it, they get to be hero or villain in the poem, but also in a safe space. So it's like they could, they're kind of going through a museum of mental health. I don't know if that comes across well, but it's they could experience what these feelings are like in a safe environment, and know that they're not going to be hurt from it, and also myself not going to be hurt from it. You know, I haven't had a panic attack in quite some time, and I think when doing that poem about panic attacks, it's it's easier to take yourself away from it. That's what, when I say poetry has saved me, it literally has saved me in writing about these things. You know, and I having a, you know, a breakdown. The two things, yeah, that got me through that were my wife and poetry, in that order.
Mm. Wow, that's excellent. So is it fair to say that that through poetry you found a sense of healing and a sense of purpose? Is that a correct sentiment?
That is the correct statement. I think, but I think art is healing. It's just healing in general. It's just, you know, it doesn't have to be poetry, but just having some kind of art in your life, having some kind of connection with community, having kind of connections with people through art. I think is just healing. You know, when I say I'm a poetry zealot, I really have such a passion for the people doing this, and you know, I support anyone out there who is able to get published, because they put their blood, sweat, and tears into this material, and it's um and it's just getting it out there and living it, means something, you know. And so um it's definitely it's something that means a lot to me, and it's a very, and I find it just very cathartic.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I agree with that sentiment fully, because I feel the same way with my writing, in the sense that, you know, it's a form of therapy, it's a form of healing, you know, it's an outlet to deal with, you know, all of life's events, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's definitely a positive, you know, productive outlet um that can help channel all of those life's feelings and emotions and events, for sure. Now speaking about your writing overall, what do you hope to accomplish with your work? Like, do you have a particular goal or purpose that you want to achieve with your writing?
I mean, I just wanted to get out there to the most amount of people I can, just to experience it and to get it into different formats, to really find new ways to express to express poetry. I think that the biggest thing that was told me when I first started poetry was that someone said I was so afraid about doing poetry because I thought that you had to be some Shakespearean scholar, or that poetry is for such an elite group of people. And I was speaking to this person, Sarah Jewell, who was running the Jersey City writers, and I said, like, I'm afraid I'm going to break poetry and everybody's going to be upset at me. And she said, "What are you talking about?" And then I was like, I don't know. Like, I never done this. I've been like, I've been writing poetry here, but I'm new. And she
Mhm.
said, "You can't break poetry." And I've run with that since. I mean, because it's poet. There's such a egalitarianness to poetry that anybody can do it. Anybody has their own truth to it, and as long as you honest with yourself and that truth, that poetry is really for everybody. It's not this high level thing that you're waiting to that you have to have read tons of things about. I think I've read more of the local poets and people I've seen with books than I have of, like, William Carlos Williams or other folks like that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in full agreement. Poetry doesn't have any form. It doesn't have any, there's no rules, there's no regulations, there's no proper way to do poetry. Poetry is what you make it. It's however you define it, because it goes back to, like we said, it's all about finding your voice and telling your stories and telling your truth. And that's tailored to the individual. So it could be whatever you intended to be, which is what makes poetry so liberating and so diverse and so energetic and dynamic, because there's really no boundaries to it. It could be however you interpret it, and there's a freedom in that, because when there's no boundaries and there's no rules and there's no regulations to or limitations to who you are, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it was the best advice I ever had, and it was and yeah, I've never forgotten that. So I live by that, and maybe one day I'll break poetry. I don't know, but it's nice to know that you can't.
Definitely. Now, what would be your dream collaboration? Who would be a poet that you would like to collaborate with? Whether living or deceased. Who would you like? What would be your dream collaboration?
I have to say, right now I'm living the dream because I collaborate every time I go to an open mic.
Hmm.
I would collaborate with anybody, and um, you know, I mean, there's, like I said, there's like a Rashad Wright, is amazing, and like all Sammy B is incredible. Like, all these people, yes, I would love to collaborate them, but I just love the whole art of collaboration and having that kind of almost this moment that comes out of sometimes people think that I plan this, but I just sometimes will give the just like to the poem to people like 5 minutes before, and magic happens, and it's not the magic that I expect to happen. It's people. There was one time I did a poem and I couldn't even hear the other person speaking because they were walking around the room, and I
Hmm.
was like, but I was just doing my part, and I was like, afterwards I was like, oh, this went off the rails. But people came up and they were like, I love the way it that where they were hearing it in little drips and drabs because of the where the person was.
Hmm.
And so there's no wrong way. It's a lot of freedom to that, because I could allow the poem exists that day, and then it's very zen. It's kind of just like I make my mark in the sand, and then I basically erase it, and then, like, I could do that poem 50 times and it's going to be 50 different performances.
Excellent, excellent. And that provides the perfect segue to our next segment, because now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for Steve to take the mic. Now, Steve, at this time, you're at liberty to do up to 5 poems of your choice to give our audience an idea of your writing style and who you are as a poet. So at this time, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hold on, whoops. Okay. This is called The Truth About oh, hold on a second. It's called The Truth. Oh, wait. The Truth About Bad Friends. Hold on a second. I have to take this call. Hold on a second.
Okay, no worries.
What's up? Hey, so what happened? Is he okay? Oh, jeez. I'm so sorry. I'll call back. I'll call back in a bit. Thanks. Bye. I put my phone down in shock, and the world is shook, and my world is shook. Balance is lost. There's tension in the air. My friend's in critical condition. I just saw him last month, and we laughed and told each other stories of our lives because that's what they were, just stories. Facebook, just IRL. Glamorized and airbrushed, so we didn't show the unvarnished truth. The truth is, my friend's an alcoholic. The truth is, he's in the hospital to a fall in his home at a 0.3 alcohol level. The truth is, I didn't know. The truth is, I should have. Truth hurts and guilt lingers retroactively. Our previous conversation feels sour on my tongue's memory. The niceties we exchanged, the courtesy we gave to each other's space, careful not to overstep our place. But what is our place? When is the time to play nice? My friend lies in a hospital bed, broken spine, head injury, and utterly confused, about to lose his wife, his kids, his house, everything that he loved to talk about when nothing bothered him. And he doesn't realize that yet. Now should be the time to talk without barriers, and yet I don't. I cower. I ask how he's doing. His answers flow in and outside of the truth that waits patiently for him like coal waits to become a diamond. Pressure and time affect us all, and I apply neither. Too afraid to make waves, afraid that those waves will swallow in us whole, when he is the only one that is drowning. And my concern, my skirting the issues, my trying to be nice, just adds weight to sink him further, away from the security of friends and family, away from the hope of love, away from the truth that awaits us all. The truth is, I don't care enough for my friend to really talk to him. He will die, and my cold comfort is not helping him. I will live with the knowledge that I didn't fight enough to help him live because I was being polite. Thank you. Okay, next one is, yes, I am going to set this, share my screen. Perfect. Okay. Okay. This poem is called Juridical Friends. Does anyone know what juridical means? A juridical person, is any organization that is not a single natural person, but is authorized by law with duties and rights and is recognized as a legal person and as having a distinct identity. I find that fascinating. My best friends are juridical persons, both online and off. What fun we have together, me with my disposable cash. They with their amazing bargains and questionable goals. My hoodie drips of blood and irony on the backs of child labor. My shopping cart filled to the brim with unlivable wages that choke unseen victims while I cherish my purchases with a smile. Content that I am on the right side of this checkout, but may not be always. I listen to my friends whisper with intent, just do it. And I do. Don't leave home without it. And I would never. Think different. And I buy the same. Have it your way, for I have forgotten any other. While I listen to their pleas, I am deaf to the screams surrounding me as I scroll down my shopping list of atrocities. The oppression I fostered when I Googled sandwich recipes. The lands I have raped and poisoned while soothing a headache. The hate I have legislated while enjoying a chicken nugget. All with a click or simple transgression. My friends condemn me to a lifetime convenience at the expense of my expenses. While they roam free of liability, justice, and remorse, and I reach for my wallet and ask, how much more do you need from me? And they reply, all. And I submit and wait 2 days. Thank you. Okay, and this next one here. Here we go. This one's called Free Popcorn. Barkeep, I'll have another. Thanks. Oh, there's this. Oh, wow. Okay, thanks. I didn't know you had this. Okay, great. Oh, that. I sit alone at a crowded bar, a mess of thoughts and emotions. And there it is. Free popcorn. Smart food. Ironic. Delicious free popcorn. Deadly free popcorn. You know, a word of note, I have diverticulitis. Any nuts, seeds, and definitely popcorn can get stuck in my colon, cause me to bleed out. And I bled. Almost died. I lost 8 pints of blood. You know, fun fact, the human body only holds 13 pints. I've gone to the hospital at least 10 times, fainted in front of my terrified kids due to blood loss, so much loss, but I could never get back. I pick up a kernel and hold it between my fingers. It's so small, it's insignificant. Should I taste it? What's one my taste gonna do? It's just one kernel. I hurt so much inside. I just want to have one moment to enjoy, just one delicious moment. You know what? Screw it. I swallow it whole. What does a bad idea taste like once in action? It's salty. It crunches. It bites back. It coats my throat with butter, making it easier to swallow and allows more bad choices to go down easier with every bite. Soon I realize that I've gone through the entire bag. leaving nothing but dust. Regret will come later, but even satisfaction is denied, because now there is only repercussions that lie in wait. There are kernels of truth that lie inside me, that know what I have done, and I will bleed for such transgressions against my better angels. Thank you. Okay, this next one is. Sorry, I'm in someone important to go to. I'll be right back. Hey, Dad. It's beautiful seeing you. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll definitely stop by. I promise. I love you. My fear. There are a few fears that scare me as much as a 2.2. Yeah, let me start that over. My fear. There are a few fears that scare me as a 2x3 piece of paper with tape. The paper that sticks to my father's door, to a room he will never leave. The permanence of marker intermingled with transit tape holds his name for now. Block letters meticulously etched scream out from the paper as if they're praying for more time, more space, more permanence. But there is none. There's only tape. Tape that is a constant reminder that someone is waiting for this room. To gasp, struggle, and suffer like the person before them. To cran their neck up enough to just see the tape with their name that hangs like a waiting obit. Someone is always next in line for a door with paper and tape, even me. Frailty of life has a depth and a width, and its measurements are 2x3, and tape. There is always tape. Thanks. And this last one, if I could have everybody take their to go off mute and help me with this. I would just need people to say you're on mute. Just keep on saying you're on mute, and I could say it whether you you're either higher or lower while I do this. So if everybody can go off, can put their microphone on, and they can help me with this.
Okay.
So can we get some people saying you're on mute?
You're on mute.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're
Okay.
on mute.
Okay, so just keep going then. I'll make it so I'll have it so that you can see if it goes be louder or softer.
Okay.
So you could start saying you're on mute over and over again, and I'll tell you when to stop too.
Okay.
You're on
You're on
mute.
mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on
You're
mute.
on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on
I
mute.
want to speak,
You're
but my
on
tongue
mute.
has no teeth,
You're
You're
on
on
no
mute.
texture to build
You're on
sounds
mute.
around, and so I
You're
swallow
on-
these words,
You're on mute.
choke
You're
on my
on
vowels, gasp with my consonants,
mute. You're on
and
mute.
stuff them back down, back where they are safe
On mute.
inside.
You're on mute.
In here, I keep all the words like giant cities that rise and fall, depending on the period. In here, there's nothing but sound surrounding me, engulfing me, sometimes drowning me. Some voices mine, some echoes, all wanting a voice. And yet I choose silence, and that too falls on deaf ears. What good are all these words when none of them have purchase? When I hoard the words that matter most, I'm scared. I'm sorry. I don't know how to talk to you anymore. These words that weigh me down because I selfishly imprison them. Guarding what words slip out, which remain in solitary confinement with me. The external and internal words commingle in a dance of reality. I put pen to paper and the words unleash. I'm on mute no more. Hi, my name is Steve, and this is my poem, Things Left Unsaid. I'm sorry. I'm flawed. I'm scarred. I don't know how to forgive or what to believe. I become an unreliable narrator in our own story. Why can't we talk when there's so much to say? How did we get here when we hobbled each other with words that should have been left unsaid? When we should have been helping each other? Why would you do that to me? Why would I? What's in a word that cripples once uttered and festers and feasts on our greatest fears, blocking out all other words, begging for release? Of all the words left unsaid, there are 6 I regret not saying more. I love you. That is all. Thank you.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that was performance poetry at a level I've never seen before. Those were selections by Steve Willett. Steve, awesome poetry, very unique approach to spoken word. And I appreciate your creativity. That was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to shift gears again, because at this time, we're going to take a few minutes for our audience Q&A portion of this podcast. So at this time, if there's anyone in the audience that has a question or a comment for Steve, you can unmute yourself at this time and give your question or comment. Come on, y'all, don't be shy.
Oh, hi, I have a question and comment.
Hey, Millie.
Hey, Noel.
Hey.
Hi, Ashley. Oh man, I'm like, firstly, thank you so much for the wonderful shout outs. Like, I'm so much of a fan of yours as you are of me. Amazing poetry. I heard some of my faves and some new ones I haven't heard before. But since I'm such a fan of yours, I wanted to know, since you have so much performance surrounded when it comes to your poetry, it's really makes me think about theater. And I wanted to know if you have any like theater background or any performance background. I know you talked about being a comic, but it really makes me think like you're an actor in some capacity. So I wanted to know if maybe one of the lives you've lived, if you have any acting training or any type of theater experience.
I really don't. I did in college. I did take I was part of a director's class where we had to do the director. Like I was just volunteering to do it, and they gave me the role of the father for Pirandello's 6 Characters in Search of an Author, which, you know, I had 0 experience doing, and that was almost a class for me but it was interesting in doing that. But I really don't have much. And then I would do these one of the people I know, one of my friends was also he would make these films, so I'd be part of that, and so I'd be like, victim number 8 in some kind of vampire flick or something like that. But it was like I really don't have any acting training other than just doing stand-up comedy and stuff. But there's a lot, there's a lot of there's a lot that you can learn just from that. I always like to play around with space. So and here the thing is that what's different is that I actually take my poems and reconfigure them for here, because in Zoom you have to work with depth as opposed to you have the space to play around with. And I like to do the poem from a different place, but while I don't have the acting experience, I like to kind of be in a different place in the room and see how the sound resonates with the audience. But thank you.
Excellent. Great question, Millie. Thank you. Anyone else have a question or comment for Steve?
Hi, Steve. I really enjoyed that so much. I guess just to follow up on that, I love the way that you're using so many different ways of just expressing yourself. And I just wanted to go back to the stand-up comedy. Tell me a little bit more about how you started that and how you think that got into the poetry, and if you even realized that it was happening.
Well, stand-up comedy was like a lifetime ago. I did stand-up comedy starting in college, where I would just go. They had this something called Midnight Expressions, where you would meet on this bridge, and people would just get up and do acts. And I was like, hey, can I do comedy? And they were like, no one's doing it, but sure. So I started doing it. And so, but I was saying before, I would just do like very, very generic comedy. I didn't really make things too personal. And I think that's and it was wonderful to do. I mean, I think I have just very fond memories of stand-up comedy and growing up and seeing some incredible comics, what they did with words. And I've always been intrigued about using that kind the usage of words, and what Carlin did was just nothing short of magic. But I've always, I guess I carried that into poetry, because I kind of I see that there's different ways you could do a poem. I have a poem that is done in PowerPoint. I did a poem in Excel. So I try to but it has to make sense. I don't want it to be just like a gimmick. But there's always some kind of thing that I could have fun with. But you could have fun with like very very sensitive issues, but you could put it in a different context, and it could give it a different meaning, or you could kind of play around with it. So I kind of always try to play with the form, with what you could do with a poem. And the possibilities are endless. It always amazes me on how what you could do with. But there's always at the back core of it is to have fun with it. Even if it's a serious issue, you could still put it in a different way, and kind of puzzle box it, and to put it in a different format and see how it feels, see if it resonates, see it, and then take that out, play with space, and then it's so writing the poem itself is just step one. There's like the performance. There's where it is specific, if it works for that space, what voices you want to have in it. So it's always interesting to have that. So I don't know if I answered that, because I went like 8 different ways, because my ADHD.
No, I love it. And I was actually thinking, just as you were talking, that so much of like great stand-up comedy is that it often gets to something really honest and kind of personal. And I just feel like I can see some of that in just the performance poetry, even if it wasn't like super obvious at first. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm a big fan of your work too. So I have your book right here, and that's next to my list of reading. So
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Anissa. Thank you. Before we close out, we got time for one more question. Anyone else have a question or comment before we close out? All right, Steve, you mentioned that you were going to be back at Mocha Mike with Millie this week. Aside from that, are there any other events or projects that you'd like to make note of to our audience before we close?
Well, I'm usually at Way, which we appreciate your enthusiasm, at Sure Things on Palisade Ave, the last Wednesday of the month. I go to Rutherford for the Red Wheelbarrow the first Wednesday of the month. I moderate the JC Plums, and I would love to see people here to come to JC Plums. And Issa's been there, so every Wednesday from 7 to 9, and we do that online. We're eventually going to go hybrid. Also, Greenville Arts Crossroads, I work with them, and they're going to have keep an eye out, because they're going to have an announcement on early December, like December 1st, about what their things are going to be doing in 2024, and I'm working with them on some things there. And then then I'm probably going to be working on the Jersey City Poetry Festival for 2024, start the new year. So I'm already trying to come up with ideas for that, because it was just such a joy to work with that. So I try to keep myself busy, but people can also find me at SJ by the Gram for Instagram, and yeah, and if anybody would want to collaborate, I think the next step is actually writing poems with other poets to really get the voices incorporated in there. That it's not just improv at the moment, but I think I'd like to try to check that out.
All right, excellent, excellent. That sounds good. That sounds good. So as we close out, ladies and gentlemen, there's just one more thing that I need to do. And that is to say thank you. First of all, Steve, thank you so much for coming through. Great conversation. I really enjoyed your approach to poetry. You definitely have a unique spin on performance poetry that really got my attention and piqued my interest. Thank you so much. I enjoyed all the poetry you shared tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of your work in the future. Thank you so much for being my guest. A big thank you to my audience. For more information about Poets with Purpose and the P.W.P Sessions podcast, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email me at poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. All of my logos and flyers were designed by the great team at Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram at @Eclipse Graphics NY. You can look them up for samples of their work and reach out to them for potential projects that you may have. For those of you that are interested in making a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, $Anointed Pen, or through Zelly utilizing my phone number. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because up next for episode 7, we have the awesome rapper Anjunique coming through on Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you don't want to miss that. She is appearing on this podcast for the very first time, so you don't want to miss it. It's sure to be an awesome episode. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap for episode 6. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to my audience. Thank you to those that have donated. I appreciate your support. This episode will be uploaded to the Poets with Purpose YouTube channel within the next hour or so. So be on the lookout for that. Once it's uploaded, you'll be able to share it with your social media channels and networks. Thank you all so much. Have a good night and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.